What up? What up? Once again, you get the Vikings happy hour song, you get the intro, you got a whole different cast of characters up in here. I am not Matt Anderson. Again, it's Jason Brown hosting this week, and we got Miles and Flip in the house for this week's episode. But before we go any farther, before we listen to what's going on with the boys, before we see what Flip's been up to, we got to talk about Yo Lake Monster. That's Badass Woodard. Also, Eastside Jiu-Jitsu, as they sponsor this wonderful show that you are listening to or watching today. So with all that out of the way, Flip, I feel like we got to start with you. I feel like you got like a little something, little news and stuff. So like, where you been? We haven't seen you on the air in a little while. Like, what's happening? What's going on with you, man?
Yeah, man, just living out here in California. My wife and I were blessed with a baby girl. Just 11 days ago. So she is brand new. And the craziness, as you both know well, has ensued, but just taking it one day at a time. Like I said, we're extremely blessed just to have a little girl right now, trying to soak it in before got to go back to the day job.
All right.
Hey, man, them 11 days feel like 6 months. I can tell you that.
I'm telling you.
It's worth it. It's worth it. But congrats, Flip.
Yeah, for better or the worse, that we got a strong set of in-laws. We got 3 aunties and a grandma, and I just leave my door unlocked because somebody's coming in or somebody's gonna be here when I get here, help it out.
Yeah.
So
that's a beautiful thing, though. That's a beautiful thing because, like, that, like, the only cheat code, the only parenting hack that there really is just live close to family or the grandparents.
Yeah.
Like, that's really
it.
Well, word. Congratulations, Flip. You're a soldier. I know. I certainly wasn't recording podcast 11 days into to any of after the birth of either of the girls. So yeah, let's hop in. We got you here.
You don't know how long I'm gonna last. Yep. You don't know how long it's gonna last. So
all right. Well, let's jump right in then. It's the off season, but there's still always some stuff to talk about. And we're gonna talk about everyone's favorite thing to talk about. Mr. Kirk Cousins. So very recently, all offseason, the contract, do we extend, not extend? All of that's kind of been, a talking point across all of the shows, Twitter, Reddit, Facebook, everywhere. Should we do it? Shouldn't we do it? Kirk kind of squashed all that in his press conference, was like, basically, I'm going to roll the dice. I'm going to bet on myself yet again. And we can table those talks till after the season. My guess is Kirk is hoping that, he puts up great numbers again. Maybe puts the Vikings in a position where they're not anywhere close to, grabbing, a surefire, top tier quarterback in the draft. Put that leverage back on his side and get in there and do some negotiating from that position. So, Flip, you haven't been around for a little bit. What are your thoughts on, Kirk kind of doing what he's always done, betting on himself? And how do you feel about the way that Kwesi's handled this? Because I've seen some folks saying that Kwesi squandered his leverage and all these other things. And, once again, Kirk's going to have the Vikings over a barrel and all of those sorts of things. And so I'm curious, what your perspective is on where we're at, how these negotiations have gone, and how it sets the team up for the future.
Yeah, I think I'll start by saying I'm not on the interwebs, so whatever is happening out there, y'all can tell me. But just from my perspective, if you just start with Kwesi, I mean, negotiations is all about what your best alternative is. And when going into those talks with Kirk Cousins, he was not in a position, blame him, blame Rick Spielman, blame the development of the coaches, Mike Zimmer's staff, but the Vikings did not have an alternative that makes sense compared to Kirk Cousins. It was take a step back at quarterback or continue on with Kirk. And so there was no leverage to be had. It was either look, get worse or pay Kirk Cousins. That's just what it is. And that easily may be what it is in 2023, where it's get worse or pay Kirk Cousins in March 2024. And we're facing a very similar situation to Danielle Hunter, which we'll get into. But you either just got to be look, are you willing to bite the bullet? Or are you willing to bite the bullet? There's no really way out of that unless Jaren Hall, takes off. From Kirk's standpoint, it's like, look, I'm motherfucking Kirk Cousins. Okay. I just got paid before having a great year in a new offense, going 13-4. I'm going into the second year of an offensive system, which I haven't done since I've been in Minnesota. I've got a Netflix special coming out on me. I've made this bet in a contract year several times. So, yeah, I'm going to roll the dice again. And look, somebody's going to have to pay me if I make good on that bet. So, of course, there's just as people may think that Kwesi doesn't have any leverage right now. Well, if things go according to plan for the Vikings in 2023, there's going to be even less leverage for Kwesi at the end of the year. So, of course, Cook would wait and bet on himself.
Awesome. So, Miles, what are your thoughts? Because I know, last week you maybe had some different thoughts on how this thing maybe could or should play out. So now that you're hearing Kirk kind of be like, hey, I'm going to roll the dice, I guess, does that change any of what you were thinking before? Or do you think maybe that writing's on the wall that's kind of expediting what we kind of are, maybe we're already thinking that, like, this could potentially be Kirk's last year with the Vikings?
I think Kirk has always publicly tried to say the right things, but he's never shown it through the negotiation window. And I mean that by Kirk's always said, I want to retire a Viking. I want to, like, he's been saying those things the last couple of years. I want to earn the right to, like, retire a Viking. I think if he really wanted to do that, and I'm not saying he should have taken less money, but Kirk had an opportunity a couple of years ago, not even just last offseason, but when Rick Spielman was here, to take a long-term extension from the Vikings. Mm-hmm. And he never did it. He always chose the short-term. I'm going to, like, continue to bet on myself, but get the guaranteed money on those short-term deals. Well, the older he gets, the less teams are going to be willing to do that. And when you look at Kwesi, who's in a new regime, his leverage is that he's not the old regime. So he doesn't have to give Kirk those same deals that Rick Spielman basically had to, because he basically bet his career on Kirk Cousins. Like we could say what it is, but that's kind of what he did when they signed him to that first fully guaranteed deal in 2018. So Kwesi doesn't have that same, like, obligation that the old regime did. And if Kirk wants to be a Viking, if Kirk wanted to be a Viking beyond this year, he'd have signed the 1-year extension again, or whatever it was that was put in front of him. And he doesn't have to do that. I'm not saying Kirk has to do anything Kirk doesn't want to do. But Kirk is getting to the point where he's going to have to play this year-to-year window on the Vikings' terms, not on Kirk's terms anymore. And I think Kwesi and company, I think they would like Kirk to be here for at least another year, because I think they'd like to have a plan in place before they officially move on. But I think they also understand that it's a two-way street. Like, Kirk has to agree to that as well. It's not just like them. So, but I also like that it feels like Kwesi's not willing to budge off a certain, like, whether it's a number or years or whatever it seems to be, he's not willing to budge off that. And I applaud him for that, because it would be easy just to say, here you go, Kirk, here's a 2-year fully guaranteed $80 million deal, right? Like, he could do that again and just get Kirk signed through 2025 if he wanted to do that. But he knows that he needs that flexibility of that long-term, of the long-term money, because he's got guys like Justin Jefferson. He's got to think about TJ Hawkinson, Christian Darrisaw, and the rest of that roster. It's such a young roster. Why are you going to keep holding an aging, expensive quarterback like Kirk Cousins when you have such a young roster that's coming up, and you want to hit that? That roster wants to, like, peak at the right time, and it probably feels like that right time is, like, next offseason for that young quarterback. And so I don't blame them for being like, let's wait and see how things play out. And if Kirk wants to be back, he can sign a 1-year 40, whatever that 38, 35, $40 million deal, or he can go hit the market. And Kirk knows, and to Kirk's credit, he knows someone's probably going to pay him, because he's an above average starting quarterback, even going to be 36. But I just think that the Vikings are at a point where they can't keep, like, bowing down to that, or just like digging themselves that hole and continuing to dig themselves that hole. Not that Kirk's been bad. That's never been we've talked about this, Jason. Like, it's not about Kirk being bad. It's just like all the other variables around it too that people just don't seem to want to consider.
So, like, what's worst case scenario in your view for the Vikings? Because, like, that's one thing that, like, I feel like in all these conversations, we always have to, like, make sure that we say out loud is that, we are Vikings fans first and
Yeah.
foremost. Like, there are players on the team that we enjoy, players that we like watching. But at the end of the day, we want the Vikings to win. And so, I guess from your perspective, I'll start with you, Miles. Like, what would you say is, like, worst case scenario and how this all plays out for the Vikings?
I mean, for me, it's giving Kirk we say long term, but anything beyond 2024 extension that's like guaranteed money, because anything that loses them flexibility beyond next season, because that dead cap hit that they already have with him with the void years that they added, I think that to me would be worst case scenario. I just think just the way this roster is coming up, they're trying to rebuild it and keep it young and inexpensive in a lot of areas because they know they got expensive players coming. I just think it'd be a bad decision at this point to cave and kind of give Kirk that long, like 2 to 3 year deal that has guarantees beyond next year.
And Flip, how about you? What's worst case scenario for the Vikings and how this all plays out?
It's really any situation where they are unable to get a realistic quarterback of the future. Whether that is a deep playoff run where they don't feel like trading up, or whether they just don't like the eval on any of the 2024 draft class. Both of those scenarios kind of just make it really easy just to go back to Kirk, keep on kicking the can down the road. Honestly, I would be okay with a Kirk retire in Minnesota deal, because I think that gives us time to develop people behind him, to trade for quarterbacks, to try other options, knowing that Kirk's in his sunset mode. But like Miles said, Kirk has never really operated in that sunset mode. So, a scenario where we're just saying, Kirk or this complete unknown that we're not excited about, which is honestly what happened with Kellen Mond, is doing that again 3 years later would be the worst case scenario for me.
Okay. So Flip, I'm gonna stay with you on this one here because you weren't here last week and you mentioned it already. Danielle Hunter, that's the other kind of really big thing that is, dominated the airwaves and airtime for the Vikings, because, Hunter, we're talking about this window. Maybe it's 2 years, maybe it's 3 years for the team for like all these young pieces to peak. Hunter, if healthy, which is the caveat you got to throw in there, is a player that you could see kind of still playing at a high level in that window. Great player last season. I think PFF had him ranked 7th or graded 7th for edges last season. Still playing very well, high level, dramatically underpaid right now. Not going to report until he gets more money. And I'm curious to your perspective. Miles, gave his thoughts on this last week, but, looking to get your thoughts. Like, where would you go in this situation? I guess, what do you think of this whole situation? And kind of how would you handle it, I guess, if you were given the opportunity to?
Well, yeah. So first, from a roster standpoint, obviously I'd love to keep Danielle Hunter, especially looking at the talent on that defense. There's a bunch of holes. There's a bunch of unknowns, but I think you can start to improve a defense that's still in a better scheme with Brian Flores' scheme. If you still have Danielle Hunter, Harrison Smith, you see improvement, or you see Lewis Seen on the field. You see Brian Asamoah take a step forward. That doesn't seem like a defense that is just forsaken to me, really, again, hinging on that scheme. So I want Danielle Hunter in Minnesota. I want him being the number one edge rusher for us, a locker room leader, a versatile player who gives us versatility on the field. And I want him being, bona fide, celebrated as a Vikings edge rusher in the long line of great edge rushers we've had in Minnesota. What gets me about this situation, where it's almost the opposite of Kirk Cousins, where, look, Danielle, I get it. You have been underpaid for 5-6 years now. But this is the NFL, and you're going to get paid on what you are going forward, not what you are going backwards. No team, it's not just the Vikings, no team is going to be like, oh, my bad, we understand you didn't get paid, so now we're going to give you a top of the market deal. And you look at Danielle's analytic stats, you see him up there with like the TJ Watts of the world, Chris Jones. You see him up there with Myles Garrett. For me, like, again, I want him here, but I'm not giving him top 5 edge money at this point based on where the team is and based on where he is going into his 30-year-old or 29, but 30-year-old season after that. I would love a 4-year deal with Danielle Hunter. I would love to get him near that $20 million range, $19-20 million range. But if he's coming in a negotiation saying, look, I'm trying to set the market, I'm trying to get 24-25 million, then Danielle, you just gotta understand what's important to you. Are you really just looking for that big payday now because you never got it, or do you want to be the number one guy in Minnesota? That's kind of, this is mostly on Danielle's plate for me rather than Kwesi's plate.
And just one thing I'll say, setting the market for edge. I mean, it's over 30.
Yeah.
You're talking over 30 mil. So 30 mil per, which
right. And like I said, I'm not going above I'm not going far above 20 just because we're 30. He's turning 30 soon. The cap space is challenged and we got a young team. So it's a hard one. I think you lean towards keeping him, but at the same time, again, if he's trying to set the market, then it's a no-brainer for me to trade him off.
Yeah, and I guess the last question I'd ask you on that point, what would feel like fair compensation?
I haven't looked at the details of all those top 5 contracts, but again, I think fair compensation would be 22 to 23 per.
Oh, sorry.
4-year deal.
I'm fair compensation, like you mentioned.
In a trade.
If you can't in a trade, yeah.
It's a really low contract. You're going to have to, the team that signs him is going to have to probably pay him. I don't think he has a no trade clause, but the team that trades for him also could, try to just play him out on this deal and say, look, it's a prove it deal, Danielle. And if you play well for New Orleans, Miami, whoever it is, that's going to go well. So I would expect at least like a day 2 pick. I would hope for that. Again, I'm a little rusty with this blog thing with the trade value charts, but with a primo edge rusher and a low contract, that's what I would hope for.
Awesome. So Miles, you and Flip seem pretty aligned on things in terms of the way you're thinking about this and the way you would go about it. I guess anything else to add in terms of what you're thinking there? I mean, it wasn't crazy, not exact, but like not crazy. No. Yeah.
I'm on Team Danielle. Like I think we've talked like you both talked about. That man's been underpaid literally his entire career. Since that man walked into the league as a 3rd round pick, he's outplayed basically every contract he's had. I don't like villainizing players when he got hurt for 2 years in a row as if like he didn't get hurt doing his fucking job. Like playing a dangerous, like people are saying, oh man, you got paid to sit on the couch. No, that man got hurt playing this sport and got paid for it. Like that's like the least that he should get for that fact. Like that, it's not like that man like was going out riding a motorcycle with Ben Roethlisberger and getting hurt doing stupid shit like that. He got hurt playing the sport and got like doing things that he's supposed to be doing and got hurt. So like him like getting paid for that isn't like, oh, you owe the team now. No, he owes the team nothing. And so like that I hate that stuff bothers the hell out of me. But like, so obviously where I agree with Flip, yes, I would love Danielle Hunter to be here. I think if the Vikings could find a way to give him like a 4-year, $90 million type deal, I think that's like 20. If that's in that Bradley Chubb type range, which I think would be fair. I think that 22 $22 million range. Like to your point, Flip, I wouldn't give him top of the market. There's just no way. Sorry, like you just can't at this point. I mean, if a few years ago, I hate kind of walking myself back, but if he hadn't got hurt, he might have gotten that deal, right? Like, but the injuries did impact it. I'm not trying to say injuries don't have an impact, but the injuries, like he might have gotten that 2 years ago, whereas because he got hurt, he wasn't able to re-up as early as he probably, should have been able to. And so I think the tough part there is that probably was holding him back, but from that like top of market deal. But I think now still getting really high guarantees for any type of deal, I'd be okay with. But I'm also okay with this idea that, like, with where the roster is, kind of what you mentioned, Flip, is if they do move him, like, I'm kind of like at that point where I'm okay with it. As long as obviously the return has to be good enough.
Right.
Because they don't have the draft capital moving forward to really go attack that quarterback in the draft. Danielle, like, that return on Danielle would at least give you more ammo to do that. And to me, the most important factor moving forward, besides building up this young roster, is finding that young quarterback. And it makes it easier to find the young quarterback when you have more assets. And now that doesn't mean replacing or moving on from Hunter is like a good thing, or that doesn't mean that moving on from Hunter is like easy. That's not what I'm trying to say. I'm just trying to say that, like, as important as he is, you're in kind of this weird window where winning probably is going to be like very limited for this team, or at least the ceiling for this team with the moves they made. That doesn't mean they can't be good, but I think there's an obvious cap on this team where it's kind of like a we'll see how good we are type of mentality, which I'm kind of okay with. You hope young guys step up and do all that, and if they do, that probably raises your ceiling a little bit. But I also think they're okay with, like, being mediocre this year. And if that's the case, like, why not go get assets for a guy like Danielle Hunter while you can?
I mean, Nick Mullen, he's only 28. He's not doing it for him.
Yeah, I mean, he signed a 2-year deal, right? Like, Kirk, where you at? You got Nick Mullen signing a 2-year deal. Why can't you?
Nick Mullen, Jaron Hall, like, we're good to go. We're good to go. All right, last thing before we get out of here. Obviously, OTA's mini camp. At this point in the offseason, we're so starved for anything to do with football. And so you got, Jalen Naylor torching our defense. That really caused for concern. You got reports now of like, Kirk Cousins maybe struggling with the Flores defense, and like the pressures are coming from everywhere. And it's taking, guys on offense a little bit longer to kind of figure out what's going on as the defense dials things up. You got like the running back competition that's wide open. Players showing up, not playing. I guess, Miles, I'll start with you on this one. When you are thinking about things or looking at this or analyzing where your team is at this point in the season, what actually matters? Like, what are the things you're actually listening for? What are the things you're looking to see in highlights? What are the things you're listening for in the press conferences? Or is all of this kind of just filler until training camp for you?
I mean, as a fan and like not being there and seeing things, it's probably more filler just because they're going to talk most people up, or at least talk positively about almost everybody, which is fair. There's no reason not to. But like how I view it and what I view as important is, where do they view the young guys going into training camp? And like we saw Brian Asamoah working in on the twos with Troy Reeder getting reps with the ones at middle linebacker, the inside linebacker. Like, those types of things don't really bother me because I know Troy Reeder wasn't brought in to be like a long-term starter. He was brought in to be depth and competition and a veteran that knows Kevin O'Connell and a little bit of the system. So I don't worry about those types of things. I do worry about guys like Andrew Booth Jr., Caleb Evans, and just to like not in like and Lewisine, not because they might be running with the twos or like kind of where they're in the pecking order. But it's more of like hearing they might not be looking as, as ready going into training camp as you'd like. Obviously, Booth and seeing injuries impact that. So I try to take that with a grain of salt because I think those guys probably do need a little bit more time to like fully recover. Even if they were full go for these camp, like the so much full go really isn't as full go as people think it is. So when they tell you they're going full go, that doesn't mean they're like 100%. Doesn't mean like they're running these like training camp practices. So I think people need to take a step back when they view it that way as well. A lot of it is learning and training right now and coaching to prep for training camp so that training camp can ramp up. So I try not to take like certain guys are torching certain guys because some guys might be working on certain technique things. They might be working on like specific coaching techniques and things that the coaches want them to work on. And sometimes that takes a while to work on to get up to speed on. And they might not be playing as fast as they will be hopefully come training camp and come season because they picked it up by that time because they've had more time to process and understand it. Whereas right now it's really the like install period. So I try to take some of that with a grain of salt.
Awesome. And Flip, for you, OTAs, mini camp. You said you're off the interwebs these days.
Oh, my bad.
Do you even know what's happening?
My bad. Real quick, I will say one thing too is the offense has the advantage over the defense in this type of scenario as well, especially an offense that is returning all of its starting players essentially, quarterback, coach, star receivers, all those players, the offensive line, they have the head start over the defense in these instances because the defense is new, and a lot of those players are turned over and not turned over from last year. They're newer or younger players, so I think that as well is something to like try not to like overreact to too much.
Awesome. Flip, what about you?
You asked if I even knew what was going on.
It's true. Have you gone to Sports Illustrated?
What's Reddit telling you, Flip?
I'm not even on Reddit. Let's see. I know JJ showed up. I know Stephon Diggs didn't.
Hey,
so I know that.
Let's not do it. Don't do it. I know where that was going.
You about to get an angry call from Matt when this recording is over.
Just needed another day to make sure people knew he still existed. It's all good, Stephon. I see you. I think Miles covered it. I try not to read into any type of competitions. For me, I'm probably at this point in this season, just off season, just trying to think about like the guys that have been anointed, the guys that have survived the regime change 2 years now. And so you've got new contracts for everybody from Kirk Cousins to Alex Madison, right? CJ Ham still kicking around. We need a big year from Brian O'Neill. I think we need a big year from Harrison Smith. These guys that have really come in and under the old regime, but the new regime has said, okay, you're still going to be here. I think Harrison Phillips is flying under the radar right now. We need a huge year for him. And if Danielle stays, then Danielle, he's got to have that banner season. So those are the kinds of guys I'm looking for, tracking, obviously making sure that they're there. They're hopefully out of the recovery room and on the field, just getting as many reps as they can. Because, whether it's Andrew Booth or Caleb Evans or Micaiah, they'll figure that out in week 4, 5, 6, down the road. But there's no part of this works if Alex Madison just isn't it, or if Harrison Smith looks like he lost a step. So those are the guys that I'm like, okay, show me you're showing up to work every day, that type of stuff.
All right. And, at this point in the offseason, every player who maybe is a little nicked up, they're all going to be there for the start of training camp. Everyone's going to be healthy by the time training camp starts. So we got nothing to worry. JJ good, Addison good. Everybody will be ready for training camp. And that's what we love to hear. But that's it. That's all. We made it through. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Flip, thank you for making time with everything that you got going on over there. I'm sure there's some aunties in the other room calling you in to tell you to get back to work. So
it's a pleasure. Little break.
Yeah, a little break. And Miles, I know you got to go do bedtime. So that's it. That's all. We are done. And I'm going to see if I can play this outro without messing it up.